Social media. I worked for an agency selling social media services to clients and I had to learn about it. The more I learned, the less I wanted to work with social media. It's a cesspool of lies, fraud and illegal activities. Same, I only lasted a few months working with social media. Changed my perspective on it completely, ads, TV and data collection included. Roundabouts. Based on all the complaints, I assumed they were confusing and unnecessary. When my city put in a bunch, I realized that I no longer had to wait 3 minutes at all of the punishment lights. Love roundabouts now. Of course that didn't stop the older population of the city from trying to have them removed. One guy even ran for city council on the platform that he would immediately put the stoplights back in. Change is hard, I guess. I never understood why people hate roundabouts so much. It's a circle. Just look left and go right, it's that easy. No confusing intersections, no long waits. Just smooth traffic flow. I'm glad you came around. I didn't think orthopedic shoes were for me, but I stand corrected. Take your award and get out. Empathy for the choices people make when they are not able to fully control themselves, i.e. addiction, mental health crisis, episodes. Having personal experience on both the receiving and giving ends really deepened my empathy and understanding that allows me to have a more nuanced and individualized approach to these kinds of things now. The biggest problem with things like addiction is that becomes a never-ending cycle. Here in the UK, the majority of homeless people living on the streets are there because of issues with addiction. This is because most councils and charities that rehouse people have strict, no drugs or alcohol, policies. These policies are in place because people under the influence are at a much higher risk of attacking staff and other users, and also stealing anything they are given to sell for drugs or alcohol. You can't force someone into rehab. So unless that person chooses to engage with rehab services, they are deemed as homeless by choice. So it begins a continuous spiral of addiction. That case where McDonald's had to pay a bunch of money to a woman who spilled hot coffee on herself. Yeah, people don't realize the awarded sum wasn't because her injury and suffering was deemed worthy of millions. It was big because that's what it takes to stop a big corporation from burning people. Internal docs showed they knew their high serving temperature caused third-degree burns, but they accepted the occasional burn victim as a cost of doing business. The amount was based on their national daily coffee sales, I believe. Punitive damages, not actual damages. Disc golf. All the guys I grew up with that played were huge douchebags. Years later, a neighbor dragged me out on a nice day and I've been playing ever since. 10+ years. I stopped playing entirely because of the douchebags. Like, I'm not a great player, I'm just here to have fun and this one Saturday I can. But then these people mob 10 deep and act like they own the free and public place. Not sure I can think of anything I didn't change my stance on after learning about it. Now I just need to know both your original and current opinion on Nazis. Getting therapy. My upbringing is within an Asian household, so when it comes to dealing with emotions, we tend to shove that into jar and move on. I used to think that receiving therapy is for the mentally ill, weak, etc. I don't have problems, therefore I don't need therapy. But after recent events in 2021 with certain people, I tried therapy and after a few sessions it just revealed some baggage I wasn't even aware of. Honestly, I wish I started earlier when I was in my 20s. I would be more emotionally prepared, and would probably have had healthier relationships with women if I had dealt with the trauma growing up and from my first relationship that devastated me. Asian therapist here. Confucianism really made me take a shitload of abuse from older family members growing up. Theyyre older, so theyyre right. No, not always. KTHX. Helium balloons. Helium is a finite resource of immense scientific value and we use it for party decorations. They could use hydrogen. There's plenty of it, and the balloons can double as pyrotechnics at the end of the party. Bad posture. Proceeds to correct posture after reading this. Alcohol as a vehicle fuel. First touted as a sustainable solution to transportation, now exposed as a greenhouse gas nightmare. Corn-growing states embraced the idea, got it written into law, and now we're kinda stuck with it. Shit makes me have to buy a new lawnmower every few years before I had ethanol-free available too. My next one will be electric, but the irony is that my last one is a Honda and I got it when I moved and got access to affordable, not $10 a gallon, ethanol-free fuel from the pumps, it'll probably last forever. Just about everything. One thing I've learned is that I'm never fully aware of any particular subject. This is the way. Absolutely, positively the way. Declawing cats. I thought it was, as the title suggests, just removing the claw. No biggie, right? I'd do that to myself if I was scratching up furniture accidentally with my sharp-ass nails. Turns out they take the whole tippy toe. Fuck that for a game of soldiers, as my mum would say. I tried explaining this to an old coworker once after she had lamented that her vet doesn't do them, and her response to me was, "I roll. Young people these days always want something to be mad about." God, I fucking hated her. Algebra. It's like a cool puzzle that makes you feel smart. I love math. Garbage at it, but still find it fun when I understand or don't understand it. Math is cool. Edit. I especially love the Fibonacci sequence. Sometimes I'll just sit around for hours doing it. I don't think people realize how much math is in everything. Math is nature, and that's why it's beautiful. Cults. I want to start one now. So what are we worshipping? Horse racing. I come from an area that takes great pride in it. I've recently learned more about it and feel that it is animal abuse. They are shot up with steroids and other drugs and die more often than you would even think. God, I remember watching this video. I don't know if it was in the States or Mexico, but it was pretty much a horse slaughterhouse. Most were race horses. Well, my naive ass thought that they would kill them first before putting them in this grinder. Holy hell, was I wrong. I can never forget that poor horse going into the grinder legs first, and it took a couple seconds for her to actually go down and die. The suffering and torture that they go through once the owner is done with them is just heartless. We don't deserve animals. My ex-wife. My ex-wife just texted me, "Wish you were here." She does this every time she passes by a cemetery. Turns out girls don't have cooties. It's actually pretty great to spend time with one. You don't even have to pick on them to get their attention. Who knew? Greater than turns out girls don't have cooties. What the fuck? I've been with my girlfriend for nearly a decade and we haven't so much as held hands because I haven't been able to find a reliable cooties vaccine and haven't wanted to take any risks. This changes everything. GMOs, and I encourage anyone who opposes them to look into them yourself. They're better for the environment and they feed more people. GMO is really just a method to design a plant to do something you want it to do. There can be bad GMOs, and there can be good GMOs. There are GMOs that are clearly good, like golden rice, which fortifies rice with vitamin A, and GMOs that are of more questionable benefit, such as pesticide-resistant crops, higher yield because of reduced pests, so potentially less land use, but the increased pesticide use does a number on insect biodiversity, so it's arguable either way. Emo. It's not about the method, it's about what you choose to do with it. We've been modifying crops for thousands of years to suit our purposes. This is just a more efficient way to do that. Blood is thicker than water. Nah, mate, family members that disrespect you and bring you down can go FK themselves. I regard my friends as family. Oh good lord, I could write an entire sitcom about the shit my extended family has pulled in the past 5 years. It's depressing as fuck and I want to run to the hills screaming. Climate change. Looking at the evidence, it's clearly a hoax. Just kidding. I was a firm denier until I had to do an assignment proving or disproving it in high school. Realized I couldn't find any decent source to back up my claim. Basically changed my mind on the spot. This was me. I used to be a refrigeration mechanic back in the day and was in denial about CFCs and ozone depletion too. How can heavy gases get all the way up there? Then I quit the trade and went back to school to study organic chemistry, and the evidence I was exposed to was undeniable. Especially with IR spectroscopy. How can you ignore the spectrum of CO2 and how it contributes to the atmospheric window? Empathy. I used to always want to give people the benefit of the doubt if it meant they were learning or working on themselves, because I know I'd want the same. Turns out some people will take your kindness and run with it, and you need to cut yourself off from people that do, or you're going to find yourself mentally or emotionally drained. Can't pour from an empty cup and all that. I've learned the difference began empathy and self-martyrdom. And I've sharpened my skills at recognizing users and narcissists.